Your daily fix of women's mixed martial arts from the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. Be in the loop, cause Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your fix of women's MMA with Got You Covered on Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Arnel De Leon, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you are doing well for yourself. Things are getting a wee bit dark here. Huge shout out, though, for Khabib Nurmagomedov. It was made official that Khabib's father has passed away. If anyone who has followed Khabib's career knows that he loves his father. He doesn't stop talking about his dad. Whenever you hear him at all in any of his interview, he always name drops his father. He's always praising him. He's always telling him how much of a great person he is. He's both a coach and a manager and a father. He loves him. He loves him, and our heart goes out to him. But coming up this upcoming Saturday, though, is UFC 251 at Fight Island, and in Abu Dhabi, where I was born. So not exactly Yas Island, but still in Abu Dhabi. So the main event is Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal, Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway, Peter Yan against Jose Aldo, Jessica Andrade versus returning Rose Namajunas, and then Amanda Ribas against what could potentially be Paige VanZant's last fight in the UFC. Let's talk about it right now. Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas. I've been talking about this fight for months now. I am excited, and finally we get to see Rose Namajunas. Let's cross our fingers right now, because for those who are unaware, Jorge Masvidal's one of his cornermen, one of his coaches, he was tested positive for COVID, and so he's not able to make the fight. Now we all know that Rose Namajunas will be able to make the fight, though. But let's cross our fingers and hopefully make sure that nothing else goes wrong in this card. No one pulls out. Nothing bad happens. It's a clean slate. These fighters will go in the octagon. Everything's all clean. The better person's going to win the fight. Nothing outside of their, let's make sure UFC 251 ends cleanly. That's what matters most. And the reason why I say that is because Rose Namajunas, for the better part of over a year, her mental status has become to question lately. Ever since she lost the title to Jessica Andrade, Rose Namajunas has talked about this extensively with Ariel Helwani. If you guys haven't checked it out, you go check up Rose Namajunas, Ariel Helwani interview, and you'll see two interviews. One interview is with her 7-8 months ago when she's talking about making her comeback in mixed martial arts, but at the same time she's already contemplating retirement despite being only in her mid-20s, in her very, very mid-20s, and talking about how much she's prepping up for a return, but she doesn't enjoy mixed martial arts anymore. That's one interview they had about 7-8 months ago. Now, in the most recent interview, Ariel Helwani interview with Rose Namajunas, and Rose Namajunas, she seems a lot more better. She's a lot more better in her mental status. She talked about how this time period between her losing the belt and where she is right now currently in her life, it's a phase of adulting and her having to grow up. Because people have to recognize this. When she was in the UFC, she debuted at 22 years old. She was champion at the age of 25. 25 years old. You're a famous athlete. You're a champion. Like, you haven't really properly adulted yet in life. You got this new contract. What's going on with Rose Namajunas? And so Rose ends up losing the title to Jessica Andrade, despite the fact that Rose Namajunas was without a doubt the better fighter that night in my viewpoints. I think it was more of Rose Namajunas placing herself in a bad situation, allowing herself to be slammed by Jessica Andrade in order so she can go attempt a submission move because she messed up in the first round doing the submission attempt. And so Rose Namajunas, she did a recent interview with Ariel Helwani. She's a lot more ecstatic about it. She's a lot more. She said herself that she expects herself to have a spectacular performance in her fight against Jessica Andrade. And it's gonna be a tough matchup, really. For those of you who didn't know, in the first fight, Jessica Andrade was the favorites against Rose Namajunas because the analysts, what I predicted, what everyone predicted was Jessica Andrade was the better fighter than Rose Namajunas because Jessica Andrade was the complete fighter. She kind of is still the complete fighter. She can box you. She can grapple you. She can fight you in the clinch. She can fight you outside the pocket. She can fight you inside the pocket. Her hooks are really good. Her uppercuts are great. Her elbows and forearms are really good. But she can also fight outside the pocket and take you down with jabs. She has unrelentless pace where she can pressure the heck out of her opponent and go for a double leg or a single leg, or go for a clinch or go for a takedown. She has all the tools and all the skills. Jessica Andrade, you can make it like, it's like her and Valentina Shevchenko, Amanda Nunes. If you just look at the physicals and just look at the eye test, those are perfect fighters. There's no error in Jessica Andrade's game. You just have to be better than her. And so for Rose Namajunas coming to the fight against Jessica Andrade, a lot of people thought Rose Namajunas was going to lose this fight. She's going to get knocked out in the first round. Didn't happen, actually. She ended up getting knocked out, though. But Rose Namajunas fought the best round she's ever done in her entire life. She fought, without a doubt, a perfect round. Like, it could go 10-9. You could argue earn 10-8. There wasn't a single aspect of the fight game that Jessica Andrade was better at than Rose Namajunas in their first fight. But here's the problem, though, and that's why that's why a lot of people, and along with me, are very excited for Rose Namajunas' return. Is because she's adulted now. She's grown up. She's adulted. She looked back at the tape because really that was her fight to lose, really, for Rose. So right now the betting odds go towards -210 for Rose Namajunas. Rose Namajunas is going to go to the fight against Jessica Andrade as the favorite. She's expected to win the fight. And I agree, she truly is expected to win the fight. And then for Jessica Andrade, though, when I look at Andrade's performances, her last two performances, against Weili Zhang and Rose Namajunas, in her fight against Rose Namajunas, that was more of a case of Rose Namajunas being incredibly greedy, attempting a move, placing herself purposefully in a bad situation in order to go win. So I'm mostly putting that down as Rose Namajunas coming into the second round with a very bad strategy, more so than her being, the weaker fighter. And then we saw Weili Zhang against Jessica Andrade. Weili Zhang has to be the one person that Jessica Andrade just cannot overwhelm. She can't. And so, here's how it happened. Weili Zhang versus Jessica Andrade went pretty much the exact same way as Rose Namajunas against Jessica Andrade, with the exception being that Weili Zhang is just much more physically empowering and a lot more stronger than Rose. So instead of being a technical boxing match, it was... So instead of being a technical boxing match, it was just Weili Zhang just like outpowering and outmuscling and just having precise precision striking onto Jessica Andrade. Because Jessica Andrade fought Weili Zhang the same way she fought against Rose, which was, like, not good. And unlike Rose, Weili did not, okay, I'm not even going to attempt a takedown or submission. I'm just going to outbox you because I know I can outbox you. And you believe you're supposed to be one of the best boxers in the game. You're expected to be a better boxer than me. That was a prediction. So I'm going to go and outbox you, and I'll prove my doubters wrong. That's what Weili Zhang did. She knocked out Jessica Andrade. So based off Andrade's two past performances, what can I expect out of this fight? I can expect Jessica Andrade to fight a lot more passive, to fight a lot more safer. I can expect Jessica Andrade looking at the tape and being like, okay, I was way too reckless in the Rose fight. I was way too reckless in the Weili Zhang fight. This fight, I'm going to make it a boxing match because I'm really good at that. Rose Namajunas being a much more better boxer, just ever so slightly, she'll be fine doing that. She'll be fine having a boxing match. So I predict right now, Rose Namajunas against Jessica Andrade, it's not going to end via knockout, not going to be an end via submission, not going to end via slam. It's going to end after 3 rounds of action, to which Rose Namajunas is just going to defeat Jessica Andrade, what potentially could be the fight of the night. My 2 fight of the night contenders for the entire card would be Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo, and then Jessica Andrade against Rose Namajunas. Those, to me, are the 2 fights that potentially could be the fight of the night. We could see someone out of those 4 fighters having the performance of the night. It's a real possibility. But really, anything could happen in the UFC. For all we know, Jessica Andrade could defeat Rose Namajunas. Rose still mentally has not recovered from her friends and family passing away and from a recent title loss. I really don't know what to expect. And hopefully, things go well for her. And so this is coming in by MMAJunkie.com. By the way, it's nice to hear Rose Namajunas, back doing interviews again. There's a period of time where she was just gone. She was barely even putting any information out there on social media. And so the headline being, Calm and Cool, Rose Namajunas details rebuild to fighting comfortably before UFC 251. It's been a while since fight fans have seen Rose Namajunas, who's 8-4 in MMA, 6-3 in the UFC. compete in the cage, 14 months to be exact. She's been gone for a year and 2 months, despite losing the strawweight title in her most recent outing. The long layoff since has withdrawn. Also, she's withdrawn from multiple other fights in the past. She was actually billed on to go fight Weili Zhang over Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And here's the thing: if Weili Zhang versus Joanna or Weili Zhang against Rose Namajunas, they would both end up being fight of the year contenders. No doubt about it, because those matchups would be so fun to watch. I've been pretty calm and cool this whole time, just really confident in my preparation. Namajunas told MMA Junkie at a pre-fight media day, held Wednesday, "I'm not worried as much as I usually am. I think it's just experience, time in, and just a preparation. It was a really good training camp. Over the past couple of years, Namajunas' level of enjoyment of fighting has fluctuated. At one point, Namajunas was considering retirement, and she considered retirement at the age of 25. There have been ups and downs, but Namajunas said it's been all about learning how her body and her mind function best. I knew that there was a part of me that wanted to get back in there as soon as that happened," Namajunas said. "At the same time, I knew that I had to be 100% committed. And I had to be 100% interested because I was kind of getting bored with training. I was just not very inspired by anything. I knew that just not a safe way to fight. Even as good as I am, I have to be interested. This is already not a safe sport, but if you're not interested, it's super dangerous." Even in the midst of a global pandemic, Rose Namajunas has figured out how to comfortably operate. In fact, the 28-year-old Namajunas, only 20-year-old, so she just got to her late 20s here, in some ways benefited from social shifts. A self-proclaimed pre-pandemic social distancer, Namajunas has found silver linings in the new normal. "Obviously, the whole global pandemic is a tragedy," Namajunas said. "At the same time, there's been a lot of huge benefits. I found to this, not just with the fight week being a little bit different, I've really always been a social distancer. Just in general, I've really cut out a bunch of other things that I didn't even know that I was doing and I didn't want to do. It's really been a huge perspective shifter for me. I can definitely see the positive impact it has on a lot of other people's lives. Everyone I know is growing gardens and realizing the importance of knowing where your food comes from. That's been huge. There's been a lot of silver linings in this whole process." UFC 251 takes place Saturday at Yas Island and Abu Dhabi, coming up this Saturday. It'll be the early prelims will be available on Fight Pass and on ESPN+. So yay, I'm happy for Rose Namajunas to make a comeback here. But then again, we don't know what Jessica Andrade is going to fight. I think definitely Jessica Andrade, she saw the tape, and she's definitely going to make adjustments. And ring rust. Ring rust being a huge thing for Rose Namajunas. So, I'm happy for her again the top fight. And here's the weird part. There's already, people saying that, well, Rose Namajunas, she could potentially fight against Weili Zhang soon. From what I'm seeing right now, if Rose Namajunas defeats Jessica Andrade, Rose Namajunas, automatic number one contender for Weili Zhang. And that could be a fight of the year candidate. I could potentially see that. Dana White himself was talking about it. In a recent fight where Amanda Nunes was fighting against Felicia Spencer, a lot of media members, a lot of comments on ESPN, people on Twitter, social media, they're all saying the same thing. Valentina Shevchenko versus Amanda Nunes. That was a prediction. Like, you couldn't... The discussion of Nunes versus Spencer, like, you couldn't see any of it or hear any of it without Valentina's name being popped up. And then when someone asked Dana White, hey, are we going to see Valentina fight against Amanda Nunes again? And the reason for that is because Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko are the two most dominant women's champions right now. So it makes sense, let's have the two most dominant women's champions fight one another. And Dana White said, no, it's not. I don't really see it happening. You know why? Because Valentina has already lost twice to Amanda Nunes. And knowing also how Dana White sees like Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey in the same category, where he's like, no, if a fighter lost twice, I don't really see a trilogy happening. If it's back and forth, yeah. But if there's like two obvious losses, no, look, Amanda Nunes pretty much stomped Valentina. And then Dana White says, actually, I'm more leaning on Weili Zhang versus Amanda Nunes potentially be happening over Valentina versus Amanda Nunes. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be really interesting if we had Rose Namajunas fight against Weili Zhang and then Rose against Amanda? That's pretty much a dream fight. That is a dream matchup. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't think it's going to happen because the women's strike division is incredibly stacked and deep. The same thing could be because if Jessica Andrade, if she were to beat Rose Namajunas, I don't think that would give her a title fight against Weili Zhang, I think then that would book Jessica Andrade against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. That would be a phenomenal fight. And then winner of that fight gets to go fight against Weili Zhang. Really, Weili Zhang, she can fight Rose Namajunas, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and Jessica Andrade. She can fight each of them each. And it will always make money. It's always a money fight because you know those fights will be fight of the night fight of your candidates. Because the women's strawweight division is that good. Coming back after the short break here, I'll be discussing some more MMA news. Once again, you are listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info. Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. Once again, UFC 251, right around the corner, coming up this Saturday at Yas Island, Fight Island at Abu Dhabi. I'm excited to watch it. So while we're seeking the return of Rose Namajunas, Jessica Andrade is coming from SB Nation, aims to knock Rose Namajunas out again to prove doubters wrong. The subtitle here being, bringing you the weird and wild from the world of MMA each and every weeknight. So, welcome to Midnight Mania, to which there was an interview with Jessica Andrade. Andrade says herself that, I don't know, Namajunas thinks it was a fluke, but I know she really wants this rematch. She wants to show she's gotten better and evolved, that she has what it takes to beat me, Andrade told MMA Fighting. There are a lot of American fans and a lot of Brazilian fans that say it was luck, but I know it wasn't luck. I was ready for all that. Once again, I'm going to say Rose Namajunas is coming into this fight minus 210 as the favorite, despite the fact in the first fight, to which Jessica Andrade won, Jessica Andrade was the favorite coming to that fight. But I know it wasn't luck. I was ready for all that. I knew what I had to do in the fight and how it would go down. If I hadn't won that way, the win would have come any other way, the next round or even the next one. I don't know what goes inside Rose's mind, but she has this strength inside of her to prove herself, to evolve after every fight. She has this desire to get better and win every time she stumbles. I believe she's coming to prove that by fighting me. If it was lucky, she'll be able to beat me, and if it wasn't, I'll win, and the mutual respect continues. It's definitely an interesting matchup and perfect candidate for a do-over. On one hand, Namajunas was tagging Andrade with a lot of counters. However, Andrade generally has no qualms about getting punched in the face, and her own work to the body and legs was definitely taking a toll on Namajunas even before the big slam. And so the other women's fight in the main card for UFC 251 is Amanda Ribas against Paige VanZant. So for this fight up, it's a very strange matchup because Amanda Ribas is coming in as the major favorite, minus 900 favorite against Paige VanZant. Like, the large majority, overwhelming majority believes Amanda Ribas is going to defeat Paige VanZant, and I'm one of them. I just don't reasonably see any way VanZant can go pull off this upset victory. Off the basis that Amanda Ribas has been in a good role lately, and also Paige VanZant, she's been gone for 2 years. She's been gone for almost 2 years. She's had injuries, had surgeries, and if you listen to her in interviews, like, her being the best fighter she can be is not even in her priority. It's not a priority for her. Like, Paige VanZant, her priority is right now is to finish up her UFC contract. She's been talking about her UFC contract for the better part of over a year. In all the interviews she's had leading up to her fight against Amanda Ribas, all the discussion is, hey, Paige VanZant, hey, Paige, what do you think about the match here against you and Amanda Ribas? And VanZant will be like, you know what? This might be my last fight in the UFC. After this, win or lose, is her own words. Win or lose, I already have a value, and I'm going to make a lot of money as a free agent. So, potentially right now, we could see Paige VanZant fight in one championship, in Bellator, some other organization, stay in the UFC, make more money, which I don't really see happening. Like, with the way how UFC contracts are working right now, I don't reasonably see a way how Paige VanZant could go and stay in the UFC. Because right now, Paige VanZant, she makes a lot more money, doing Instagram. She can make a lot more money if she did TikTok. Did you know there are people who do TikTok videos? They do a weird, dumb video for like 20 to 30 seconds and can make potentially around $20,000 to $2,000 per video? Insane, right? Can you believe that? Like, while we have these fighters here making $9,000 in a single fight, there could be somebody just making $2,000 to $20,000 just posting a 25-second video. A really bad 25-second video about themselves on TikTok. It's ridiculous. It really is. The money game right now in the UFC just isn't all that good. And for Paige VanZant, I support her all the way. I support her if she can go find another avenue of making money on top of what she's making as a mixed martial artist. I'm fine with that, really. But right now, for Amanda Ribas against Paige VanZant, her priority really isn't about her trying to win. Really, currently, there's a recent interview that came up right now during Media Day. This is coming in from MMAJunkie.com. Paige VanZant feels excitement, not pressure, ahead of final bout on UFC contract. The 26-year-old flyweight fights the final bout on her UFC contract this weekend. She's 8-4 in MMA, 5-3 in the UFC. So I think Amanda Ribas, I think she's just 9. She's 9-1 or 9-0, right in her MMA career. With a lot online, Paige VanZant isn't feeling any pressure despite this being a pivotal moment in her fighting career. This is coming from VanZant. For me, it's just another fight, honestly. VanZant told MMA Junkie on Wednesday in a virtual media scrum, I put the same amount of pressure on myself, whether it's the first fight of my career or the first fight of the main card. It doesn't matter what position I am, the same amount of pressure. You need to win your fights to be successful, and definitely going to be a huge determining factor in the way I move forward. But at the same time, I know whatever happens in the fight, I'm in an amazing position. I'm just excited to see what the future brings. Paige VanZant has been wanting to test free agency for some time. The former Dancing with the Stars contestant wants to see what her value is in the market as she's unhappy with her current UFC deal. I'm excited. I've never been in this position before, so I think it's an important position for me to be in. You don't really know your value until somebody tells you what it is, and it's the option of multiple people that say what they think my value is, so I'm going to gain a lot of knowledge. So good for Paige VanZant being able to, gauge how much money she could potentially make for herself. Meanwhile, what does Amanda Ribas think? Amanda Ribas wants to bet on herself against Paige VanZant. Once again, minus 900 favorites. You're going to be making a whole lot of money if you bet on Paige VanZant winning the fights. And to be honest, even Paige VanZant doesn't really seem like she cared that much about the result, really. Meanwhile, what does Amanda Ribas think? At a pre-fight media scrum, Amanda Ribas, who is 9-1 in her mixed martial arts career, 3-0 in the UFC, giggled and at times burst out laughing as she animatedly fielded questions from reporters. She showed no sign of nerves, entering her highest profile bout to date. No, it's very welcome for me, Ribas told MMA Junkie when asked about the pressure that comes with hype. That's awesome because in the UFC there's a lot of fighters where they say this about my name, about Amanda Ribas. It's wonderful for me. Ribas is delighted by the prospect of fighting big-name fighters. VanZant, who's 8-4, 5-3 in UFC, is a second straight matchup Ribas deems as a big name, having defeated a highly touted prospect, Mackenzie Dern, in October 2019. For me, it was unbelievable again because Paige VanZant, I fought against Mackenzie Dern. Ribas said she has a great name, she has a big name too. Now I'm fighting against Paige. I'm fighting with great girls with big names, not just in MMA but in sports. I think with that I think I can be a big name also. So looking at the betting odds right now, she's coming at the minus 900 on the average across. This is coming in from Best Fighting Odds. However, being the favorite doesn't bother Ribas. In fact, she likes it. The Brazilian fighter joked she needs to find out how to put money on herself. I've been trading a lot for that, Ribas said. So when I saw the betting odds, it was amazing for me. I am looking for how to put money down because that's good. I'm really happy with that. And pressure? I don't put pressure on myself because I fought since I was a baby. This world, this competition, this vibe is my home. For me, it's big, and I really love it. Even with the win over Paige Van Zandt, Ribas thinks she still needs time to develop before she sniffs title gold. Perhaps a top 10 or top 5 strawweight opponent will be next, but Ribas isn't ruling out another fight against a flyweight either. I feel I need a little time because I just have 3 fights in the UFC, Ribas said. I'll be 4-0. Dang, she's really confident about herself. I'll be 4-0, but I am an ambitious girl, so maybe in my category, in my weight, 115, I hope the next fight can be, top 10 or top 5. Maybe if the UFC wants me in 125 too, against some hulking girl, I'm looking for that too. Dang, I'm putting this out there, man. Amanda Ribas, she's confident. She is incredibly confident. And Mackenzie Dern, she's a tough hombre. So, yeah, I'm from the eye test right now. Looking how Paige Van Zandt, how she presents herself. Looking how Amanda Ribas presents herself. We got the tale of 2 fighters here. One fighter, Paige Van Zandt, was formerly a prospect who through battling injuries, going through surgery, was pretty much gone from the UFC game for a while. And now she's mostly focused on, doing what's best for herself financially. Then we got this other fighter here, this young prospect here, who sees herself competing against a top 5 ranked fighter in her division. Can you believe that? One fighter wants to secure a contract. Another fighter wants to fight against the very best. I'm putting my money down on Amanda Ribas. I just don't reasonably see a way how Paige Van Zandt could potentially defeat Amanda Ribas. But I'm always going to say this. You can never doubt anyone in the fight game. Anything can happen, and although Paige Van Zandt might not take this fight as seriously as Amanda Ribas is, for all we know, Paige Van Zandt could go and leave the UFC with a knockout or with her arms held high. Anything can happen. Amanda Ribas also did another recent interview where she compared herself to Amanda Nunes. Once again, the confidence, really great there. In a recent interview, she talked about her fight against Paige Van Zandt. She says this fight is very, very important, not only because it's against her, a fight that we had booked already, but also because it's in a weight class above. Ribas told MMA Fighting, I think they really trust me a lot. My weight is good. I was a bit apprehensive, but I'm fine. Feeling strong, and I'm happy to be fighting her. Because I think I'll have more eyes watching than if I fought anyone else. So this is a very important fight for my career. And then she goes on to say, I like it. I think it's an opportunity to test myself. What if it works and I copy Amanda Nunes, who I'm a big fan of, a champion of 2 divisions in the future? I think it really is a good opportunity for me to test myself. I'm getting close to 30, she laughed, and it gets harder to cut weight. I have a short-term goal, a mid-term goal, and a long-term goal in my mind. I think that's a mid to long-term goal for me. I think it's cool. We can't settle down. First, I want to win this fight, and then I want to fight a top 10, a top 5 opponent, and then win the belt. And down the line, after getting the belt, I will want another belt so I don't settle. I think this fight will be a very good fight for me. I think Paige is very crazy. You don't know what to expect from her, Ribas said. When you think she will stand and trade, she takes it to the ground. And when you think she will grapple, she stays up on her feet. I have to be smart against her. Some people say I have to take her down. I like that too. But I have to be smart because she beat Rachel last time with an armbar. She has a lot of kicks too, but that can be an advantage for me because I can grab her when she kicks and take her to the ground, which is what I like the most. It all depends on how I feel in her punches. I don't think it will last 3 rounds. I think I'll finish her. She can take a punch in the face, but we always say in the gym that those who can take a punch in the face can't take a punch in the body. Good for you, us. I like how Ribas is presenting himself in the fight. How do I predict the fight going on? 3 rounds. I predict 3 rounds. Ribas takes her down, and then the fight ends with pretty much Ribas slowly working Paige. Yes, Paige did get an armbar victory, but then again, a lot has to go wrong for. Here's the thing. I didn't submissions from the bottom. A lot has to go wrong up at top, and I think Amanda Ribas has a good enough skill set that I don't think she will be making, enough mistakes or any much relevant mistakes that can go and, jeopardize her fight. I think Amanda Ribas is the definite favorite who's going to defeat against Paige VanZant. And whatever happens to Paige VanZant next, whether it be her competing in another organization or her staying in the UFC, I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see on what to expect from both of these fighters going forward. One fighter expects to fight with the very best in the top 5 to become champion. Another fighter wants to secure a new contract, and I'll be happy for whatever happens for both of these fighters. I also got the fight statistics here. This is coming in from Forbes. When it comes to significant strikes landed per minute, the score goes towards Amanda Ribas. I'm looking at all the stats right now. There's only one thing that Paige VanZant is better at than Amanda Ribas, and that's striking accuracy. And it's by 8%, so it's not really all that much, really. But here's another thing. Significant strikes absorbed. So, of the two fighters here, Paige VanZant is more likely to get twice as hits through a significant strike per minute. Note that. So in terms of significant strikes landing, Amanda Ribas is more likely to land a significant strike. She's more likely to avoid getting a significant strike being absorbed to her. She has a 74% striking defense compared to Paige VanZant's 43. Takedown accuracy, Amanda Ribas 50%, while Paige VanZant is 33. Here's the interesting part: takedown defense. So takedown accuracy 50-33 in favor of Ribas. Takedown defense, Ribas 85%. Out of all the people to go take her down, she defended 85% of her takedowns, compared to Paige VanZant, who was about 35%. So when I look at this, I'm like, yeah, even the stats say Amanda Ribas should defeat Paige VanZant. The only one thing, once again, is striking accuracy. And since, Paige VanZant, she's coming off a surgery, I think she's going to fight a little bit more passive. So I don't think that's going to carry over that much. I think in terms of striking accuracy, I say both fighters by the end of the fight are going to have very similar numbers if they're to just trade. So you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, coming back right after the short break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. So we got a lot of fights being announced here. We got Andrea Lee versus Roxanne Modafferi, a fight being set up at UFC Fight Night in September. That's be a really fun one. Andrea Lee versus Roxanne Modafferi. Who's gonna win that fight? Yikes, that could really honestly go either way. I gotta bet my money on Andrea Lee, but Roxanne Modafferi, yeah, you just never know with her. That's the thing. She can fight and she can compete with the very best in the division, but you just can't see her string enough wins in a row. It's very difficult. I'm a huge fan of Roxanne Modafferi. She's one of the more wholesome fighters in all of the UFC. But I gotta pick Andrea Lee for this fight here. Sadly, Marina Rodriguez versus Carla Esparza. This fight was a Fight Island card that was meant to happen on July 15. That's gonna be 4 days after the upcoming Saturday show. There was supposed to be a fight happening there between Marina Rodriguez and Carla Esparza. That fight has been removed due to Rodriguez cornerman testing positive for COVID-19, which is very interesting considering the fact that Jorge Masvidal, his coach, was tested being positive for COVID-19. But considering that Marina Rodriguez, I don't know what the situation is. If you had COVID before you made the travel, then your fight will continue on. But if you have COVID, it's so confusing. I don't get why the Marina Rodriguez fight has to be scrapped, but Jorge Masvidal and Kamaru Usman, that's fine. I mean, I kind of get it, kind of. Usman versus Jorge Masvidal, that's the bigger fight, so there's no way they're going to scrap that. But the reasoning behind it, though, seems kind of hypocritical for me. We got Valesca Machado against Karen Toledo on tap for Shooto Brazil on July 26th, coming up in just 18 days from now. That's going to be a really fun fight. Then we have Michelle Waterson versus Angela Hill added to August 22nd UFC events. We'll be around next month. Oh, that's an interesting fight there. Waterson versus Angela Hill. For those of you unaware, I've been really supportive of Angela Hill and Michelle Waterson. I think both of them should have won their respective fights in one of the more recent UFC cards. It was Michelle Waterson against Carlos Esparza and Angela Hill against Claudia Cadella. And when I look at that fight, I'm like, oh my gosh, Michelle Waterson won her fight. I'm like, oh my gosh, Angela Hill won her fight. But that didn't happen. You had Carlos Esparza. It's so strange how things are going on. So Carlos Esparza, she ended up defeating Michelle Waterson, and Michelle Waterson gave the O face to the camera, being like, what? Oh, huh? And so was Angela Hill, except Angela Hill acted like Wario from Mario Party and started stomping on the ground when she learned that she didn't win the fight. Then she called out Claudia Cadella. Claudia Cadella called out Carlos Esparza. Carlos Esparza is now matched up with someone else, and now that fight got canceled, and now we're going to have Michelle Waterson against Angela Hill. Hopefully, Michelle Waterson is going to put a lot more effort in this fight than she did against Carlos Esparza. Because Michelle Waterson, she fought the right way against Carlos Esparza, okay? She did. She fought right. If she was just a little bit more aggressive, if she showed just a little bit more, she could have won the fight. She really could have. You have to win the fight. Michelle Waterson fights like a champion, which to me kind of is an insult. The way how I put it. Because in the world of mixed martial arts, in the world of UFC, this is how it is. If you're a champion, you're fighting like a championship fighter if you go by decision. But if you try to knock out your opponent or submit them or just dominate them, then you're fighting like a challenger, but you're not fighting like a champion. That's just how it is. It's the weird logic. I remember when it was Dominic Cruz against John Jones, where John Jones was pretty much he was fighting him. He was fighting very passively. He was distancing himself from his opponent. And when he won the fight, everyone was like, well, John Jones, he fought like a champion. And it's happened in the past with other title fights. To be a championship fighter means you have to win the fight by decision. And for Michelle Waterson, she does that. She doesn't fight like a challenger. Angela Hill fights like a challenger, but Waterson doesn't. I'm going to be really excited to go call that fight. Then we have Claudia Cadella against Yan Xiaonan on September 26th, my birthday. Yan Xiaonan against Claudia Cadella. That's going to be a very interesting matchup here. I talked about this, that Carlos Esparza and Claudia Cadella... Oh no, Michelle Waterson had an interview about this. Michelle Waterson says that all the fighters outside the top 5, if they're to win their fights, they could slide their way into the top 5, because then they'll be replacing Nina Ansaroff and Tatiana Suarez, because they're both gone right now. And then when I saw the performance of Esparza and Claudia Cadella, I thought to myself, there's no way. Both of your performances weren't good enough for you to make an argument that you should be competing at all for the title or be anywhere near the strawweight contender scene. No way. And so now we have Claudia Cadella and Carlos Esparza fighting against fighters outside of the top 10 right now, essentially. They're fighting against fighters who they should defeat. And then it just doesn't look good. I'm looking at it Claudia Cadella against Yan Xiaonan. No disrespect to Yan. Yan's a good fighter. But the trajectory right now of Claudia Cadella's career isn't going well. And I believe if she just did a lot more better in the Angela Hill fight, she could be competing amongst the top 5. So while that Esparza Rodriguez fight, while that fight got cancelled for Fight Island, it has been rebooked for July 25. I'm excited for that fight to go happen. Hopefully Carlos Esparza can show just a little bit more. Esparza didn't have a good showing. Claudia Cadella didn't have a good showing. Depending on how well those two do in their second time go around against fighters outside the top 10, then maybe we could see those two get matched up. And this is coming in from BloodyElbow.com from Timmy Bassel. The UFC signs Invicta FC strawweight champion Kanaka Murata. The UFC has added a new fighter to its strawweight roster. The strawweight roster already being really deep as it is. Kanaka Murata, last seen lifting the Invicta FC strawweight title, Murata announced she had joined Zuffa with a message shared on Ryzen's official Twitter accounts. So Murata, 26, has a pro record career of 11-1. Her only loss came against former UFC fighter Rin Nakai. That was a flyweight bout back in 2016. Nakai now competes at featherweight. Murata's current win streak stands at 7 wins, with victories over Claire Fryer and Pancras, Angela Magana at Ryzen, and Emily Ducote in Invicta. By the way, Emily Ducote has recently won her last fight, so good for her. In recent years, Murata has shown off an impressive submission game with 4 of her last 5 bouts, ending via tap out with 2 Von Fluke chokes, a rear naked choke, and an anaconda choke. Last November, to clinch the strawweight title, Murata defeated Ducote by split decision. And speaking of Invicta, Kay Hansen says she was manipulated into political and religious statements early in her career. The UFC newcomer has been dealing with some backlash due to weigh-in photos from her early Invicta fights. Most notably, a weigh-in outfit reading, "I love the way Candace Owens thinks." Yikes. Considering the short notice nature of her UFC debut, by the way, congratulations for Kay Hansen, man. At the age of 20 years old, she defeated a former title contender and champion at Jin Yu Frey. Good for her, man, because honestly, when I look at that matchup there, Jin Yu Frey should defeat Kay Hansen, but I predicted Kay Hansen winning that fight just because Jin Yu Frey and atomweight moving over to a bigger division doesn't always turn out well. Kay Hansen was able to go defeat against Jin Yu Frey on just 5 days' notice at UFC on ESPN 12, which is Poirier vs. Hooker. Kay Hansen was able to hit a flying armbar and finishing off Frey with a submission victory in her ensuing scramble. And while the victory may have been a sweet one, it also appears to have brought with it a new level of scrutiny that Hansen's time fighting Candice did not. Namely, photos from her early career Invicta weigh-in surface where Hansen was sporting a series of strong religious and political messages. Things like pro-life, pro-God, pro-gun, 2 Corinthians 6-2, generally read as a warning to non-believers to turn to Christ, and most notably, a sports bra reading, "I like how Candace Owens thinks." Hansen quickly took to social media to explain these statements, calling them the product of manipulating and toxic environments. "I was very young, and in a manipulating, toxic environment during that time in my life. I was also very young, views and opinions evolve as well. Take all this into account before you jump on a hate train." In a recent interview with MMA Fighting, Hansen expanded on her response, and while she didn't give any details as to exactly what the environment was, beyond calling it an at-home situation or what her current beliefs lie, she did make it clear that even at the time, those were statements that she wasn't comfortable with. It's crazy because all those pictures and stuff are from when I was 18. She's 20 years old right now, just 2 years later. I'm not ready to share my story per se, but in a short sense, like I said, I wasn't in an environment where I was able to think for myself. I was manipulated and kind of heavily influenced into portraying myself in a certain way. Whether it was for marketing purposes or whatever, I was kind of in an environment and I didn't know how to get out. And I was 18. I was easily persuaded. She's only 20 years old now. I'm just saying. You can't really just throw the age thing of this. Oh man, I was so young back then. How long far was that? Oh, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. Whatever. It's just dumb because I'm getting a lot of heat for things I didn't even want to do myself at the time. I was literally 18. Okay. That's the hardest time I think about making my debut so young, on such a big stage with Invicta. Everyone messes up when they're 18, but no one sees it. No one gets scrutinized for it because no one knows about your mess-ups when you're 18, but me, it's like everything on social media. People are so quick to think to know me and what they know. Man, I was 18, I'm 20 years old now. For a little over a year now, I've been out of that environment I was referring to. I've been able to be on my own person. I have my own views. I'm not even the same person I was in those pictures. Alright. Let me talk about Kay Hansen quickly here. So, I can relate to Kay Hansen's position. Not only that, I predicted this. If you follow Kay Hansen on her social media, on her Instagram, you can tell where her mental frame is right now. At what point, like, where in her life. Like, if there's a timeline of what certain things will happen in your life, like, you know, by the age of 5 or 6, you're gonna have your first crush. By the age of 10, you're gonna have your first fight. By the age of 13, that's when you're gonna go look for your own clique. At the age of 15, that's when you start like distancing yourself away from people you don't like. At the age of 17, that's when you're completely like unsure of yourself, going towards college. When you're 18 years old, you're trying out different things, so you're trying to figure out who the heck you are. When you're 21 years old, that's when you're this braggadocious young dude or young chick who thinks they know everything in life. Alright then, when you're 24, you're like kind of a boring person because you moved away from the partying scene, unless you're Asian, because I'm Asian American, and you'd be surprised how many like Asian Americans there are. They're like in their 30s, still act like they're 20 or 18 years old. It's bizarre. But me being a person who lives here in Southern California, things are... Like, I've met people like Kay Hansen. I have friends who are just like Kay Hansen. As a weird background information about myself here, because I want to share this. So, I'm Mormon. I was born in Abu Dhabi, raised in the Philippines, then raised in New York. Then from New York, moved to Arizona, to Northern California, to Southern California. I lived pretty much everywhere in Southern California, from Los Angeles to Stockton, and from Los Angeles to Anaheim. There's a period of time where I lived in San Francisco and Stockton. I lived practically everywhere in the California area. And there's one thing that's really prevalent in the California area is the fact that there's a lot of hesitation and a lot of negative viewpoints as it pertains to religion. California is mostly a liberal, progressive state. It's a liberal, progressive state, but if you actually live here, like it's not really. It's so strange. And so for Kay Hansen, being this religious girl who lives in a religious, I'm not sure what group she's in, what religious affiliate she's in. But me being a Mormon person here, there is this real level of indoctrination that kind of goes on with religion that everyone just has to accept. And people generally nowadays are leaning towards agnosticism or atheism as it pertains to religion. And so right now for Kay Hansen, she's now just going through that period right now where she's putting stuff out there on social media. America is increasingly pushing towards agnosticism being the thing and atheism. So now people are ribbing her on her religious viewpoints, on her political viewpoints, because here's the thing. People who have the tendency of being religious happen to be conservative or happen to be on the right. And in America, if you just look at history and how young people normally think, and people who are on social media are typically really young people. And young people are typically not religious, or they're not right conservative, and they're pushing towards being progressive or liberal. I know this, okay? I know this because I study in liberal leftist colleges. I studied in leftist liberal college. I have friends who like go to places like UCI, which is predominantly agnostic. It's like a college predominantly filled with like Asian American kids who are agnostic with like mommy and daddy issues. And if there was a group of religious people out there, they're all like Kay Hansen, in that they struggle like trying to move away from their parents, trying to move away from that religious indoctrination thing that goes on that many religions sadly do. And hopefully, down the line, she just becomes a better person. That's what I'm hoping for. I got no problem with whatever she puts on her shirt, or whatever photos that's happening out there. What matters is now. But gosh darn it, that was only a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, 2018. You're not all that mature, just putting this out there. So you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. Coming back right after a short break here with something a wee bit.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. So recently I've been going through the forums, I'm going through online, and I've been looking up what are your biggest pet peeves in UFC or mixed martial arts. And I found a lot of cringy ones here, but one thing that a lot of people are mentioning is women's mixed martial arts. A lot of people find women's mixed martial arts very cringy. And I'm thinking about it. And you know what is really cringy? Okay, Ronda Rousey's time as champion and everyone talking about Ronda Rousey, that was really cringy. And it's very easy why somebody would be turned off by Ronda Rousey, especially during her time as champion. Especially when you have, like, people, you got Floyd Mayweather challenging her. You got Ronda Rousey saying stuff that she can go defeat Floyd Mayweather in a fight. We know now, if Floyd Mayweather and Ronda Rousey were to fight each other, it's very likely, in a boxing match, it's very likely that Floyd Mayweather would win. Now, in a mixed martial arts fight, Ronda Rousey could potentially win, but in a straight-up boxing fight, Floyd Mayweather would defeat Ronda Rousey. And you got fighters like Brendan Schaub. You got Brendan Schaub saying that Ronda Rousey can defeat any of the heavyweights. She can defeat Brock Lesnar in a fight. It's not true. I don't really see that happening. We got Joe Rogan comparing Ronda Rousey's dominance to that of Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali. No, like a lot of women's mixed martial arts is overblown, but some of them is legitimately awesome. Like whether you're a male or female, everyone can agree right now in 2020, best fight of the year, Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang. Alright then, I got friends who don't even watch mixed martial arts, and they're saying, oh my gosh, wow, that fight was so totally awesome and amazing, wow! Because it is amazing and awesome. And one of the good parts about, I like our champions now. One of the good parts about the current women's crop champions we have right now in Valentina Shevchenko, Amanda Nunes, and Weili Zhang, none of them are overly annoying to the media. What I mean by that is that when you look at Amanda Nunes, what is she known for? For being the toughest woman on earth. Alright then? When you look at Valentina, toughest woman on earth. When you look at Weili Zhang, great prospect, future star of the UFC. Like after Nunes, it could potentially be her being the big next, like women's MMA star in a global scale. Weili Zhang. Now let's compare their hype to Ronda Rousey's hype. Ronda Rousey, this larger-than-life superstar icon of not just women's mixed martial arts or mixed martial arts, but in the world that transcends sports and into, like, life as it is, and politics, and, like, international, like she does modeling, she's a movie star, TV actress, she's a voice actress for a video game, she appears in Nickelodeon. It's so overbearing. It is super overbearing during that time when Ronda Rousey was champion. Like, yeah, Ronda Rousey, she's a great champion. Really awesome woman. But gosh darn it, can I stop seeing Ronda Rousey's face everywhere I go? Like my sister, when she joined the army, she's like, I'm like, hey, Sarah, why did you join the army? And she said, because Ronda Rousey would totally do it. And I'm like, no! So my sister Sarah, she joined the army. And immediately, she was set in these, like, wrestling scrambles. For those of you who are unaware, when you join the army, they're going to set you up in situations where you got to wrestle with one another. And my sister, she would attempt, according to my sister would attempt arm bars. She would attempt judo tosses. And, props of her, she was able to win one scrambling battle. She scrambled off with one woman, and she won it. And then in the second fight, she attempted the judo toss, and then her opponent got to her back somehow, was able to work away and go for a rear naked choke, and my sister tapped out. And from that moment right there, my sister stopped watching mixed martial arts. Because she's like, I thought I could do the thing that Ronda Rousey can do, So I find that really funny. Also, for those of you unaware also, if you guys don't know the video, there's a video out there where there was like some soccer mom who watched a Ronda Rousey video, or was a huge fan of Ronda Rousey, and then she decided to become a mixed martial artist. And I put that in quotes, i.e., she paid money to go inside an octagon to go fight someone. It was awful, it was embarrassing, and I don't want to see anything like that ever happen again. So I'm happy that we got Nunes, Weili Zhang, Valentina. They're not, advocating, or they're not pushing people, or not influencing people to go and become mixed martial arts fighters when they have no business being there, okay? It's one thing if you inspire a young athlete to become an MMA fighter. It's another thing to inspire, little girls to become MMA fighters so one day they can end up being in a movie. Or inspiring soccer moms to go become fighters. It's cringy. It's very cringy, and I understand why there's a lot of people that are turned off by that. So I'm happy with the current crop right now of women's MMA fighters. Another thing I look in the forums here, like what is really cringy or what's really pet peeve about MMA cards or UFC cards, and people really dislike the low tier women's mixed martial arts fights. And what I mean by that is I'm specifically looking at the women's featherweight division. Right now, the women's featherweight division, it's still currently up and running. According to Dana White, he's going to scrap that division. All the featherweights are going to move down to the bantamweight division. They're going to try to build the bantamweight division to become better because that division right now is kind of lacking. But, okay, within the top 6, it's really good, but outside the top 6, there's no really any great prospects in the bantamweight division you gotta look out for. And so they're pushing fighters like Megan Anderson to go move down to bantamweight, which I think is a really good idea. But when you look at the featherweight, when you look at the featherweight division, or when you look outside the top 10 of the bantamweight division, you're looking at it, and you're like, wow, this is not interesting. It's not. Because just looking at the eye test, that these women are not going to excel that far within their own ranking. Now, for the strawweight division, for the flyweight division, you can look at those fights and be like, oh my gosh, wow, that's really impressive. You can look at somebody like Cynthia Calvillo, Angela Hill, Michelle Watterson, Junior Frey, Kay Hansen, Antonina Shevchenko. There are fighters who are not high ranked in their divisions, but will have a great performance, and they'll have an objectively really good looking fight. And that's what you want to watch out for. And I think there are a lot of people who are turned off with the idea of having like 2 women fighters fighting against each other when in the long run they're not going to excel all that well in the rankings, so there's no point watching it. It's similar to how I look at catchweight fights. Like, no matter how good the fighters are, if it's a catchweight fight, I'm not going to be interested because it's not going to lead to anything. Because it's a catchweight fight, nothing actually matters. And when you have a woman's featherweight fight against another woman's featherweight, and they're nowhere near the rankings because there's no such thing as the women's featherweight rankings, then you feel like it's a waste of time, and you get turned off from watching that. Another thing here that is a pet peeve or kind of cringy is that, bad low-ranked WMMA fights, BT Sport commercials. Yes, BT Sport commercials can get really, Oh, here's one huge pet peeve here. Wall install strategies. When a fighter clearly needs a finish to win, rocks his opponent but goes for a takedown, doesn't take advantage. Wall install strategies. Fighting like a champion. Wall install strategy right there. It's not enjoyable to watch. It's not fun. And I don't care how much the commentators or Joe Rogan are saying, hey man, like, they're fighting smart. No, it's boring. You can fight smart and still be boring. Whenever I watch a UFC event with friends or family members, the second they start hugging and holding each other on the cage, that's when, me, my friends, and my family members, that's when we all stand up. We all stand up, we go to the restroom break, we know nothing's going to happen for the next minute, so we have a free minute of pretty much just doing whatever. I don't get food, order pizza, look at our phones, go to the restroom and pee for about a minute. Wall install strategies, no one likes them. As a fighter, you can do whatever you want in order to go get the win, alright then? If you believe doing the wall install strategy, if that will give you the win, okay, good on you. But all because it's the right strategy or a good strategy doesn't mean I actually have to enjoy it. Alright then? Like, I know painting the wall that I need to paint is... You have to do that, alright then? Like, if there's a wall I gotta paint, and it's really important that we go paint that wall. No matter what way you look at it, yes, it's important to the city for me to paint it. Yes, it's important for my employer for me to go paint it. But that doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy doing it. Yes, painting that wall is important, but I don't enjoy it. Yes, that guy grabbing the dude and hugging him for the better part of 2.5 minutes. Yes, he's fighting the right way. He's fighting smart. He's delaying the time so he can go get a decision victory. I get it. Doesn't mean it's not boring. I'm so sick and tired of this. It changes so much. I don't know. It bothers me every time a fight analyst or somebody's talking about, what is the right way of fighting? Okay, there is no right way of fighting. There is none. Willie Zhang versus Ioana Jędrzejczyk, alright then? even I'm not going to say that's the right way to fight. Rose Namajunas talked about this, where she says in her viewpoint, the reason why Weili Zhang vs. Joanna Jędrzejczyk is not the fight of the night, is not the fight of the year, is because there was very little defense that was happening, and they're both prepping themselves up in bad position to go potentially get knocked out. And you know what? Rose is right. One could argue that Weili Zhang vs. Joanna Jędrzejczyk was not a good fight. Doesn't matter if it's good. If it's exciting, that's what I enjoy the most. If you're watching a basketball game and you see one team score like 148 points to 98 points, I'm not going to be like, wow, isn't that impressive and amazing that team was able to do it the right enough plays to score 148 points? Or same thing in the football. I remember there was one with the Denver Broncos. It was the Broncos against some team, I forgot about it, but they ended up losing the Super Bowl. And everyone agreed. It was an awful Super Bowl. At the time, it was considered the worst Super Bowl ever. Because it was just this one-sided beatdown, one-sided boring beatdown. It wasn't back and forth. Yes, yeah, like you shouldn't, like not every single event or a sporting activity should be back and forth, okay? Then like I play like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, okay? I play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! I used to do competitive Tekken. I used to do competitive chess. I used to play like a community basketball. You want to dominate your opponents. Because here's the thing, as an athlete or as a competitor, you're not supposed to care what the audience thinks about your actual performance. You just do what you do. Alright then? But all because the audience understands that doesn't mean they have to like it. All because Tyron Woodley versus Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. Yes, Tyron Woodley fought exactly how you should fight against Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. Doesn't mean it's not boring. I remember Joe Rogan saying there's no such thing as a boring fight because anything can happen in a fight. I can watch Dada 500 versus Kimbo Slice, and I can guarantee you that if I were to show that fight to a bunch of people, they'll all say the exact same thing. It was a bad, sloppy, boring fight. I don't care if they were gassed out or how hard it is to weight cut. It's still a boring fight. My goal, my role as an audience member is to be entertained. Not to, exactly empathize for the performer. That's how we are. Is it really shallow? Yes. But that's the cold hard truth. As audience members, what we care about is to be entertained. Joanna versus Weili Zhang, that's entertaining. Jake Shields against somebody during the mid-2000s UFC or late UFC. Yes, Jake Shields is fighting a great fight. He's a great wrestler. He's a great grappler. Go out of him. Doesn't mean you have to applaud him for being a good grappler. It's the reason why a lot of people are turned off by Khabib Nurmagomedov. You might not like Khabib's style, but he finishes. And here's the thing, even if he does finish his opponents, you don't have to cheer for him. You don't have to like it. That's a huge issue for Ronda Rousey also. For the longest time, people went from ain't Ronda Rousey awesome because she can knock out people in the span of 1 minute to oh my gosh, she's knocking out people in under 1 minute. This fight's freaking boring because people like competitive action. People want back and forth action. And when one fighter is dominating the other opponents, or when one fighter is obviously stalling for time, it's not fun. It's no bueno. No one enjoys it. Another pet peeve here, found here. Eye pokes. Yes, eye pokes. The fighter should be penalized. Because if you check eye pokes at every fight, you could do 1, maybe 2 eye pokes before the referee penalizes you. So you have, and also a grain shot. You can do 1 or 2 eye pokes. You can do a grain shot. I think there was one UFC fight that happened where a dude did 2 eye pokes and 2 grain shots. And then after doing those 4 illegal moves, then they got penalized. There should be an immediate penalty. They know the rules, they know what they can and what they can't do. Don't do this thing where it's allowed for them to do an illegal move, but after doing two of them twice, then it's wrong. No, I don't believe that. If someone pokes their opponent, even if it is accidental, they should be penalized. They should be penalized. Okay, they know what they can do and what they can't do, and if you do that accidentally, guess what? You still damage your opponent and place them at a disadvantage. So yeah, eye pokes are no bueno. There are some really good women's mixed martial arts fights out there, but during the time of Ronda Rousey, a lot of it was very forced, and I don't want to go through that period again. So that brings an end for today's podcast. You guys have been a great audience. All I have to say is thank you. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you, please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Women's Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.